Welcome to Beyond the Needle, the Aesthetics Business Podcast. I'm your host, Emily Ruse. I'm a former clinic manager turned digital marketing freelancer, and I've had the privilege of helping dozens of aesthetic practitioners across the UK and beyond grow their business. So I know firsthand just how challenging it can be to build a successful aesthetics practice in today's competitive market. Each week, I'm here to share real, actionable strategies and bring on expert guests to help you level up, attract more patients, and build a standout brand. Let's turn your passion into a thriving business together. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Needle podcast. And today I'm going to be talking all about TikTok marketing and whether you as a clinic or a practitioner should be marketing your business on TikTok. I'm getting a lot of people asking me this question at the moment. A lot of people becoming more curious about TikTok and whether that's another platform that they should be showing up on. And I feel like a lot of practitioners kind of bury their head in the sands with TikTok a little bit because it's another platform that you need to post on, right? And most clinic owners have that kind of marketing fatigue with what they're doing already. And adding another platform into the mix just kind of sounds a little bit impossible. But I do think TikTok is becoming more and more important. In fact, I do think it's important for most businesses. In an ideal world, you would have set up on TikTok a few years ago, and it would have been much easier for you to grow if you'd set up back in 2020, for example, which is when a lot of creators took off because TikTok was still relatively new and we had the lockdown period where TikTok really blew up and it was so easy to grow and go viral. Now it's not as easy, but it's still much easier to reach new audiences than any other platform, in my opinion. I also think a lot of clinic owners think that TikTok is a platform mainly used by teens and young adults, people in their early 20s. And while that age bracket does form a large proportion of the demographic on TikTok, the numbers of people over the age of 30 who are using the platform is rapidly rising. So just to break it down, the single largest age group is aged between 25 to 34. This means your potential patients, millennials interested in preventative treatments and skincare, are likely scrolling TikTok every single day. In fact, 43% of consumers research aesthetic and beauty services online, and TikTok's addictive short video format is often where they discover new treatments, trends, and practitioners, because the way TikTok is designed, the fact that you can literally search fillers or Morpheus 8 or Profilo and it brings up hundreds and thousands of educational videos, means that it's a great platform to go on when you want to learn more about something. So this is where more and more people are going to do their research about treatments. I do also think that when we look at that age bracket, that 25 to 34 age bracket, for most clinics and practitioners, they want to be reaching people over the age of 30. Now, your future patients are already on TikTok and using TikTok daily. So that is where your audience are likely to be consuming a lot of their content in the long term. In a few years down the line, a lot of your target audience are going to be there. And they already are there because we know that the number of people over the age of 30 on the platform is rapidly rising year on year. While the platform is known for its younger audience, a growing number of older users are also engaging with TikTok. So the age group 35 to 44 represents 16% of users on TikTok. So your audience are definitely there. And that's only going to become more and more important as the years go on. And, I always say to people, don't put all of your eggs in one basket with social media platforms like Instagram, because we know what happened, to Facebook all those years ago. Facebook used to be the number one social media platform that everybody was on. And now it's Instagram. And most people are on Instagram and TikTok. We don't know how things are going to go in the future, but that could very easily shift to TikTok. We don't know how things are going to go in the future. So I do think that it's important for people to future-proof their marketing strategy by cross-posting between platforms. And we're going to dive more into that in this episode, because I also think it's important to mention that what works on one platform doesn't necessarily work on another. So you shouldn't necessarily just be reposting the same content to your TikTok as you are on Instagram. But there are ways around that without getting content fatigue. So in short, yes, TikTok is absolutely a platform worth investing your time in. It can dramatically boost brand awareness, it can help position you as a go-to expert, and ultimately funnel more patients into your clinic. Studies have observed a rapid rise in aesthetic practitioners using TikTok in recent years and predict it could become a dominant tool for patient education and promotion as the years go on. Unlike Instagram's more polished approach with content, TikTok's raw, relatable videos let you showcase your personality, your skill set, your results in an authentic way. which is exactly what builds trust with prospective patients, and trust is key in the aesthetics industry. And while succeeding on TikTok does require strategy and consistency, what I have found and seen a lot is that it's far easier to reach new audiences on TikTok than it is on any other platform. You know, when you've got platforms like Instagram, your content is being pushed out mostly to your existing followers, and you have to really put the work in order for it to be seen by new people. Whereas the way the TikTok algorithm works, it is constantly pushing your content out to new audiences, and depending on how those audiences react to your content, i.e., are they stopping and watching it and consuming it and commenting or liking or saving it, depends on how much it will then push it out to more of those new audiences, which is similar to how the Instagram algorithm works, except it's much harder to get in front of those new audiences in the first place. Whereas with TikTok, it's actively showing people new content from accounts they don't already follow within the For You page, which is where people spend most of their time. If you open the TikTok app now, it will likely open on the For You page, and that is where you will see new videos from creators that you don't already follow. Yes, you will see some from people from accounts that you do follow, but 90% of that content is from accounts that you may have never even seen before. So that's good news for anyone listening to this who is thinking about setting up a TikTok account and doesn't have one already, because if you would set up an Instagram page today, it would require some serious strategy to really grow that. Whereas with TikTok, even if you're new, you don't need to have thousands of followers to get views and to get your content pushed out. So in today's episode, I'm going to be giving you a comprehensive step-by-step guide to help you, whether you're a solo practitioner or a clinic team, to get started on TikTok and market yourself effectively. I'm going to be covering everything from setting up your profile to content ideas, posting frequency, captions, hashtags, personal branding, and of course, converting TikTok attention into local patient bookings. Before we dive in, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already. And please do take 2 minutes, if you enjoy my episodes, to leave me a 5-star review. I really, really appreciate it. Okay, let's dive in. So if we start right at the basics, your first step is to create a professional TikTok account and optimize your profile. Now, when registering, you'll have the option to choose a business account or a personal/creator account. So for aesthetic clinics, practitioners, a business account can be beneficial because it lets you add a clickable website link in your bio from day one, whereas personal accounts require 1,000 followers to unlock that feature. Having your booking page or website in your bio is obviously crucial for converting viewers into patients and taking people from your profile to where you want them to go next. Obviously, the trade-off is that business accounts have a more limited music library due to copyright, but you still have plenty of sounds, just not necessarily the trending sounds. So TikTok offers a commercial music library for business users. It's not always the best sounds, but you can always use original audio or voiceovers. And when you're scrolling through TikTok consuming content, you will be able to click on sounds that other videos have used and save those. If it's an original audio, you'll be able to save those to use yourself. And a lot of the time, trending sounds are original audio rather than actual music. But obviously, any of those songs in the charts, you won't have access to for copyright reasons. So it really is down to you what you feel is more important. If you want to have the access to all of the trendy music, then maybe go for the personal creator option and build your account up before you then add the link in bio. You can link to your Instagram, so you can put your call to action in your bio to go over to your Instagram to learn more. But I personally, if I was growing a clinic account, would opt to have the business account option so that I could have my website in my bio, because I would personally think that that's more crucial to my strategy. When it comes to optimizing your profile, you obviously want to make a strong first impression, just like you do on any other platform. So having a friendly photo of yourself, if you're a clinic, the clinic owner, a team photo. Faces create a more personal connection, so showing you, the practitioner, can be very effective for personal branding. Users will feel like they're getting to know the person behind the brand. It's much easier to kind of connect with people, and I think on TikTok, people just want to consume content from other people. They don't want to feel like they're being sold to. The brands that do the best on there are the ones who have kind of a personal brand feel to them. Someone behind the brand or a team behind the brand that create content that makes you feel like you're getting to know them on a personal level, that your audience can connect with and resonate with. So I do think having a photo of a person or a team as your profile picture is important here, rather than isolating people with a logo that they can't really connect with. It's just the same as with any other platform. When it comes to your username, I'd pick something really easy to remember that reflects your brand. If your clinic name is taken, maybe add your city or town to the end of it. So the key is with your bio, obviously you don't have many characters to play with. You can't go into too much depth. You just need to tell people who you are and what you do, where you're based, and ideally have a call to action if you can. TikTok also allows adding an email contact button in your profile, so consider enabling this to allow potential patients or partners, brands to reach out to you directly. And finally, make sure that you switch on TikTok analytics. So this is usually by default with business accounts, but if you're a creator or personal account, you will need to do this via your settings. But analytics are important because it will help you track your growth and see which content performs best so that you can refine your strategy down the line. So one of the biggest tips that I can give you about TikTok and growing your business on TikTok is to be present on TikTok yourself. Learn the TikTok landscape. You need to spend time as a viewer to really understand TikTok's culture. The platform's content style is unique. It favors authenticity, creativity, and engaging storytelling over polished, perfect content, which is what most people are trying to achieve over on Instagram. And video shots on an iPhone in your clinic hallway or treatment room can outperform slick commercial style professional videos because TikTok users really value realness and relatability. I've said this before in an episode, I think in my last solo episode, about Instagram and how the videos that I see do the best are just shot by someone on their iPhone. They don't have professional videographers coming in to film their videos for them, social media, because people want real people. They don't want to feel like they're being served an ad. They want relatable, they want authentic, they want to feel like they can trust you. And that, I think, is much better achieved through a simple video filmed on an iPhone. You can still make that look good. There are things that you can do in your settings, and you can use the cinematic mode within your camera to kind of make the video look a little bit more polished because it kind of blurs the background behind you. There's things that you can do with lighting, you can use a mic. But really, I would say if you want to grow on TikTok, you need to make your videos look as real and relatable and authentic as possible. And when you're scrolling through content, the content that you see perform the best will look like this. I would spend time on TikTok every day. It doesn't have to be hours, 5-10 minutes, just scrolling and seeing what other people are doing and what works. I think this is important because a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that they can just repost everything that they do on Instagram over on their TikTok, and that's fine, and they can just forget about it, and they don't need to worry about two different platforms because all they're doing is reposting the same content. But that's not going to help you grow in most cases, because people use TikTok over Instagram because they want to see a different style of content. If they want to see the kind of content that we post on Instagram, they'll go over to Instagram. But when they're ready to see something a bit different, they'll go over to TikTok. So scroll your For You page for 5-10 minutes every single day. This is the algorithm curated feed that most users watch when they're on the app. Notice what grabs your attention in the first 2 seconds of a video. Those hooks are critical given the average user's attention span is just 8 seconds. Check out popular hashtags in the aesthetic space, such as profilo, fillers, aesthetic doctor, aesthetic nurse, nurse injector, dermatology, skincare community. When you search those, see what top creators and other clinics are doing. This research isn't to copy them, but to identify trends and formats that work. Study successful creators in your niche, observe what captions and hashtags they use, how they structure their videos, and which of their posts get a lot of attention. Take notes of ideas you like and think about how to put your own spin on them. For example, you might see a plastic surgeon doing quick myth-busting videos or rating videos where they rate treatments or trends. These formats could inspire your content because you're seeing what's working and you're putting your own spin on it. And of course, you want to pay attention to trends. So TikTok is driven by trends, and using a popular sound clip can boost your visibility. So the trends that you see on Instagram always start on TikTok, but it normally takes about 2 to 3 weeks for a trend to come over from TikTok to Instagram. So you will be ahead of the trends if you're looking at what's working on TikTok, and you'll know what is about to be big on Instagram so that you can get on that before it really becomes a big thing on Instagram, and that keeps you ahead of the curve. And TikTok have a discover or trends tab which highlights popular hashtags, sounds and topics at the moment. And trending content doesn't have to be silly. I think a lot of people hear the word trend and they cringe a little bit, but you can often adapt it to educational or inspirational messages related to what you do that will relate to your audience. And I think if you're clever about it, you can put a spin on a trend to make it educational or to deliver your message about something that you're passionate about or something that you believe in or something that you want more people to understand in a more engaging way. And another thing to note is that TikTok is increasingly used as a search engine. So that we know that SEO on Instagram is becoming more and more important. This is because Instagram are trying to copy what TikTok have done in that they have turned the app into kind of an SEO search engine where people are going to learn more about things or to find restaurants in cities that they're visiting or shops to go to. They're also using TikTok as a platform to find solutions for the problems that they have. So people are literally typing their questions into the TikTok search bar in the same way that they would Google something. For example, they might be searching, how does Profilo compare to polynucleotides, or what is the best skincare for acne scars? This is a golden opportunity because if you create content answering these questions and include those keywords in your captions and in the hook on the text on top of your video could be the one that pops up when someone searches TikTok for that information. So keep this in mind when brainstorming content ideas. So I'm going to end this first section with some action steps because this isn't about wasting hours of your life watching videos on TikTok. It's about studying the feed with purpose and making your scroll time strategic. So I want you to spend just 5-10 minutes a day scrolling through TikTok. Save videos that grab your attention and note what hooked you. Watch content from other clinics and practitioners who are doing well on TikTok to really understand what works well and what people are responding to. Observe what works in terms of text placement, editing pace, tone of voice, lighting, background music, video length, and note what doesn't. So anything that makes you kind of swipe away or switch off a video. You're not just watching, but you're collecting intel. And I'd also say that it's really worth, when you're coming up with content ideas, typing in keywords on the TikTok search bar, the treatments that you offer, the concerns that you help people overcome. And when you scroll through the page that comes up after you click search, there will be suggested search terms that TikTok show you. And that gives you a good indication of what specifically people are searching for to do with those pain points, concerns, treatments. So if you type in something like Profilo, for example, when you scroll through that page, there'll be videos that come up about Profilo. There will also be lists of suggested search terms that TikTok give you, such as what is Profilo? How does Profilo compare to polynucleotides? How many treatments of Profilo will I need? It will show you what other people are searching for to give you more suggested terms to search. If you know that that's what people are asking and what people are searching for on TikTok, then you know to create a video about it. So that's a really good way of coming up with content ideas. I think the biggest thing that I want people to take away from this episode is that if you want your content to perform, it needs to feel like it belongs. That doesn't mean you have to dance, you don't have to lip sync, you don't need to do anything cringy, but it does mean that your content needs to speak to TikTok fluently. So that comes from spending time on the app, listening, learning, picking up on micro cues. When you scroll regularly, you'll instinctively know what fonts work, what tone of voice performs well, what sounds are trending, how to pace your edits for maximum retention. If you look at aesthetic practitioners who are doing really well on TikTok, none of them are dancing or doing cringy trends. Mostly they're just educating and giving people their opinions, their thoughts, answering their questions, and just being really helpful and valuable and informative, which is really what we should be doing on any platform. So it's definitely not a platform where you need to be dancing or doing the latest trend, which is what I think a lot of people think that it is, but it really isn't. It's just like any other platform when it comes to marketing your business. In fact, TikTok is influencing buying decisions in a way that most platforms wish they could. 66% of users say that TikTok helped them decide what to buy. 74% explore a brand further after seeing it on TikTok. 67% have made a purchase when they weren't even looking to shop in the first place. I have done that a lot. TikTok Shop, I know that's not how most clinic owners are going to be using TikTok, but TikTok Shop is a dangerous place to be because as soon as you save a video with something tagged in it from TikTok Shop, you will start to see that product in videos more and more and more. So TikTok isn't just an awareness tool, it's a decision-making engine. So I touched on account types earlier, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about why I think having a TikTok business account is important. So business accounts unlock actual tools that will allow you to run ads without needing to feel like a big brand, get insights on what your audience are doing, and use Spark ads to amplify content that's already working organically. And no, switching to a business account doesn't destroy your reach. There are people out there that say it does, but that's outdated thinking. TikTok wants small businesses to succeed on the platform, and they've even created an entire ecosystem to support it. So if you're not leveraging that, you're working harder than you need to be. So we're going to talk about Spark ads, because if you're only boosting content on Instagram or running the occasional Google ad, this will be a game changer. So Spark ads let you turn organic TikTok posts into paid content, either on your own or user generated content that mentions your clinic. But for most people, it will be your own content that you will be doing this with. So here's why it's smart. Firstly, you don't have to create a separate video for the ad. It keeps the content native, so it doesn't scream paid ad, which TikTok users tend to scroll straight past. It builds on content that already has some traction, so you're not starting completely from scratch. And you can target locally, which is obviously critical for aesthetic clinics that are targeting the area around them. And the best Spark ads are the ones where your clinic has mentioned your services are explained, or a service is explained, so it's a video about a specific treatment, or how you tackle a specific concern. You show up on camera, you're educating or answering a common patient question. This content doesn't have to go viral, it doesn't have to be seen by hundreds of thousands of people, it just needs to be relevant and useful to the right person. And Spark ads can take that content and put it in front of 10,000 more of them tomorrow. You don't need to be doing this, by the way. I would say, most importantly, get your TikTok set up and start posting on it strategically and see how you do organically. But I do think Spark ads are a great tool to have access to help amplify some of your content where relevant. Okay, now let's talk about what you need to know when it comes to the content that you're putting out there on TikTok, what you need to be doing in order to get it right. There is a very simple formula that I want you to follow when creating content for TikTok, and it comes in 3 parts. There's the hook, there's the value, and there's the CTA, and CTA stands for call to action. So let's break it down in a way that makes sense for your aesthetics business, that you're not just posting for visibility, but you're actually creating videos that drive trust, interest, and bookings. So the hook is the very first thing someone sees or hears when they land on your video. If you don't grab their attention immediately, they're gone, and the TikTok's algorithm will notice this. So your hook can be verbal, visual, or both. I like to do both, because why not try and maximize that? The key is to interrupt the scroll with something that makes your ideal patient stop and think, wait, is this video for me? This is literally something that I was thinking about earlier. Oh my God, I've always wondered that and wondered what the answer was to that. Or I didn't realize that could happen. I need to know more. So here are some strong examples of hooks that you could use as an aesthetics practitioner. Most people get this wrong about dermal fillers. This might sound controversial, but you do not need more filler. This is the only treatment that I recommend for under eye hollows. If you're over 35, this is the treatment that you need to know about. Avoid the dead hooks, things like stop scrolling or this is for you if. They're overused and people tune them out instantly. Your hook should feel natural to you and relevant to your audience. Think of how you start a conversation with a client in clinic. You want it to spark curiosity or something unexpected. With visual hooks, obviously you've got the title of the video that could come up. That verbal hook that you're saying out loud could be written as text for the first few seconds of your video so that people hear and read at the same time. Because if there's words there, their eyes will be drawn to them, so that they're going to instantly know what this video is about and whether it's for them. But also visual hooks are things like camera movements, slow zooms, transitions, things popping up in the video. So it could be the way your hook pops up in words, like, it looks really funky. It kind of pops up on the screen, like word for word around you as you're talking. It could be an explosion or something like kind of a picture popping up, something that visually hooks people in and grabs their attention. These are all important things to consider because people get bored really easily when consuming content. Don't forget that there's like thousands of other videos that they could be scrolling through and watching instead of yours. So the more you can do to visually engage them and keep them kind of hooked and interested in your video as they watch it, the better. And then the next part of the formula, you've got the value. So the next kind of 5 to 45 seconds should really do the heavy lifting. This is where you actually deliver on the promise of the hook and give your viewer a reason to keep watching or to come back for more. And there are loads of ways to deliver value on TikTok. So the value might be that you're educating people on something and giving them valuable information that's going to help them with a problem, a pain point, something that they're struggling with, and talk them through the solutions. It could be entertaining. So that might be kind of a funny trend or comedy sketch This isn't going to be something for everybody, but it is a type of value that you could be delivering within your content. It could be relatable, and this is where you might bring storytelling in to help people really connect and resonate with the value that you're giving. Or it could be inspirational. Whatever it is, it has to have some kind of value in the meat of the video, because that's the main part of the video. And the number one reason why people are consuming content is because they want to get something from it. And then the final part is your call to action. Think of it this way: you've just hooked someone in, got them to watch your entire video, given them something of value for free. You've basically just given them a service. So now you're asking them to do something for you in return. And that could be a number of different things. It could be to like your video, to save it, to share it, to follow you for more great content like this. It could be to go over to your website, to join your mailing list. What I would say is that your call to action doesn't always need to be pushing people to go and book a consultation with you, or to go over to your website to inquire, or to DM you for more information. Your call to action can be as simple as, and especially in those early days when you're growing your account, to push people to follow you for more content. Because the thing I've learned with TikTok is it's really hard to get followers now, because people have learned as the years have gone on that they don't need to be necessarily following the accounts that they enjoy consuming content from, because if they consume that person's content a lot all the way through, the TikTok algorithm will show them that person's content again and again and again anyway, even if they're not following them. That's literally how the TikTok algorithm works. So people don't necessarily follow accounts on TikTok. They just scroll through their For You page and they're shown what they want to see, because the algorithm knows them well enough to show them that content. So it's harder to get followers on TikTok, I think, than any other platform. So you need to be telling people to follow you, and you need to be telling people to engage with you, which will obviously help with the algorithm to push it out to more people. I just think the most important thing is to mix your call to actions up. So don't always push for bookings. This is a long game, and not every viewer is going to be ready to spend money today, especially if they just come across your content for the first time. But they might be ready to follow you, to learn more, or to share your content. The more touch points you create, the warmer your audience becomes. And when they are ready to book, they'll already know, like, and trust you, because you've consistently shown up and delivered value. Okay, so the next thing that you want to do in order to grow your business on TikTok is to create content that answers questions. Now, I've mentioned this earlier on in the episode, but TikTok is a search engine. So we need to start thinking about TikTok as a search engine, just like Google, rather than a social media platform. And I feel like this is the mindset shift that people need to have in order to start creating content that actually works on the platform. So now that we've had that mindset shift, what content should we be creating if TikTok is a search engine? Well, just like you would write blog posts for your website that answer questions that people are searching for on Google in order to get more people over from Google onto your website, you need to be doing the same thing on TikTok. You need to be creating content that answers questions, ideally questions that your target audience are asking. So let me give you some examples. In fact, I'm going to search some keywords right now on TikTok and tell you exactly what people are searching for to do with those keywords or phrases. So after listening to this episode, I want you to think about the treatments that you offer and the concerns that you help people overcome. And I want you to make a list of those keywords. And then I want you to search those keywords within TikTok to see what other people are searching for to do with those particular keywords. So if we take an example like jowls, if you start typing jowls into the search bar at the top of TikTok, it will bring up a list of things that people are searching for to do with jowls. So for example, jowls how to fix, jowls treatments, jowls exercises, jowls removal. And then if you search the term itself, it will bring up a page full of videos that other people have created to do with the keyword jowls. So you can literally see what is working well for other people and what types of videos to do with jowls people are engaging with and consuming. And if you scroll through this page, TikTok will give you more suggested phrases to search to do with jowls based on what people are specifically searching for. And you can literally do this with anything that you offer. You could do this with Profilo, you could do it with laser, you could do it with facials and microneedling, and see what people are specifically searching for to do with those things and what content is working well for other creators. By doing this, and by doing this regularly, you are going to get very clear indications as to what people actually want to know to do with the treatments that you offer and the pain points and problems that you can help them overcome. So if we take the term jowls, for example, when I scroll through the content that's working well, I'm seeing that people are really engaging with videos that demonstrate how we can improve the appearance of gels using injectables, and that is through both talking content and content where people are marking up their faces with text and music over the top. So, people want to know how they can fix gels non surgically and whether any facial exercises will improve the appearance of gels. So that could be a great video to create. Can facial exercises actually lift sagging gels, and give your expert take on it? If you do this, even for just 5 problems that you can help people overcome or 5 treatments that you offer, you will find yourself with a huge list of questions and content ideas that you can then go away and create content about. I think a lot of people put off getting visible on a platform because they just don't know what to talk about. But the answers are literally there. All you need to do is pick up your phone, search those key terms, see what other people are searching for, see what other content is working well to do with those keywords, and create content about that. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to come up with something that's never been done before. You just need to create content that solves problems and gives your audience answers to the questions that they're asking. But like I say, this doesn't need to be your entire content strategy. Yes, it should form a large part of your content strategy because ultimately it's going to be what helps you get in front of new people. But there are also other types of content that you should be thinking about on TikTok, like trend-driven content, which we touched on briefly. And this is where you can have fun and tap into the native language of TikTok, but you do it in a way that still makes sense for your brand and your goals. Because yes, trends can feel a little chaotic or silly, and some people feel like they really don't fit with their business, and that's fine. If they don't fit with your brand, if you feel uncomfortable doing them, don't do them. But there are some trends that I think work quite well for aesthetic practitioners, and you can tailor them to your treatment, your patients, your brand message, or use them to dispel myths or give your opinions on things. But the key is not to chase every single trend, because you don't need to be hopping on every single trend in order to stay relevant. You just need to choose trends that can be adapted into something educational, something relatable, that is going to help people connect with you, or maybe that shows a little bit of your personality. So it gives a nice balance between that educational, informative content where you're maybe talking to camera or demonstrating something. And then you've got content that really kind of shows your personality and helps people get to know you on a bit more of a deeper level. And remember, trends are designed to boost reach, not necessarily conversions. So you can use them to grow your visibility and attract new eyes, but always lead people back to your expert content and service driven videos. Another type of video that I think works quite well on TikTok for aesthetic practitioners that I've seen some practitioners do that's work quite well is explainer videos. People love to have things explained to them on TikTok. Like, they love to learn new things on TikTok. Is where people go to learn, I think, these days. It's where people go when they want to have those questions answered and they want to understand something a lot more in depth about, for example, a treatment that they're considering. So what I think can work quite well is where you have a patient sitting on a treatment couch and you're standing next to them and you're talking about what you're going to do to that patient's face in order to help overcome a concern that they have. So this could be you literally talking to the camera saying, this person has come to see me today because they're experiencing X and they want to explore the options non-surgically. This is what we're going to do, and literally mark up the face and talk people through exactly what you're going to do in terms of treatment in order to help them overcome that. Then yes, you could walk people through the treatment and show the end result and the client and the patient reaction. But even just having that explainer video where you're literally explaining to people and showing them by marking up exactly where you're going to treat in order to help them overcome that particular concern can be really powerful, and it's really visual, and people like visual content that keeps them kind of hooked and engaged and gives them something to watch and follow along. So I think that's quite a nice style of video for TikTok, and I've seen it work quite well. But I understand that it can be a little trickier to create because obviously you need to have a patient who's willing to be filmed and go on social media. So this might be where you start thinking about having model days, which I know a lot of practitioners do already, but getting the most out of those model days by making sure you're creating content that is going to work for different platforms. And then another type of content that you should be thinking about on TikTok is that personal behind the scenes content. So your patients are trusting you with their faces and their confidence, their long-term well-being. It's taking them a long time to kind of decide. For most people, it's taking them a long time to decide whether or not they want to have this treatment and who they should be going to, who's going to take care of them. So while that kind of educational, informative content is important, the real connection often comes from the casual, candid content. So things like videos that help people get to know you, that take people through your journey from where you first started, from graduation to where you are now, or things that you tell your 20-year-old self, or things that you've learned over the years as an aesthetic practitioner, behind the scenes of a clinic day, or 3 things you wish more people knew before they had treatment, or taking people along to set up a treatment with you. They don't need to be polished videos. In fact, they probably shouldn't be. They're kind of meant to be like a peek behind the curtain. So like a potential patient is getting to know you and your approach, not just your treatments. This type of content humanizes your brand and it builds trust. These are the types of videos that make someone say, they're the one I want. I feel like I trust them, and I've not even walked through their door yet. And another type of content that I think is important to touch on is carousels, because carousels on TikTok are a thing. They didn't used to be a thing, but now they are a thing, and they do work quite well for many people. And this isn't the type of carousel that you typically post on Instagram. Again, going back to platforms, what works well on Instagram isn't necessarily going to work well on TikTok. What tends to work well in the form of a carousel post on TikTok is carousel using photos. So you've probably seen it on Instagram where people do like their monthly photo dumps, and it's like a carousel of photos that round up the month. It's a similar kind of thing on TikTok, but using photos and having the first slide with a good hook, and then photos that kind of match each part of the next phase of the carousel post with text written over the top. So it kind of takes people through a journey. They're less informative, as a carousel post typically might be on Instagram, but they're giving people value in a different kind of way. So, and you could use this again with your personal content. So, for example, the first photo could be a picture of you at work with the hook, 5 things I would tell my younger self as an aesthetic nurse. And then each slide is kind of picture of you, or picture of you treating, or maybe a picture of you younger leading up to now, with one thing on each slide that you would tell your younger self. That kind of content can work really well on TikTok. So I definitely think this should be part of people's content strategy, and just look at what other people are doing that you like, or that makes sense, or that you think could work well for you, and start to integrate that style of content into your strategy and just test it and see if it works. TikTok is ultimately still a video platform, and it always will be a video platform, but carousel posts give a different style of content that you could be creating. And like I say, they do work quite well. So, posting strategy, how often should you be posting? There's a lot of different advice out there. Some people would tell you to post daily or multiple times a day, unlike Instagram, where it's probably better to post no more than once a day. You can post really as much as you want on TikTok, and it's not going to affect the results of your content if you post 2 things too close together. But posting multiple times a day, or even every day, probably isn't realistic for a lot of you listening to this. So I would aim for quality over quantity. At minimum, aim for 3 high quality posts a week. I think that's sustainable and enough to feed the algorithm. If you can, aim for 4 or 5 posts a week. But I think 3 really high quality posts on TikTok a week is enough to grow your account, as long as you're doing things that I've said, and you're mixing in different content types, and you're educating and answering those questions that people are searching for. And when you are creating content that answers those questions, that content is then evergreen. So it can live on forever through TikTok, and it will be shown to people when they search those keywords and your content pops up. And even the content that you see on your For You page is not recent content a lot of the time. It was content that was posted weeks or even months ago. The way we're shown content on TikTok is very different to how we're showing content on Instagram. So I have clients who have had videos do really well on TikTok, and they're still being shown to people now, even months and sometimes even years later. So that content that you create can literally work for you for years, as long as you're creating the right types of content, and that will live on and bring you views, bring you visibility to your brand, and get people over to your profile. I would also batch film content days, just like any other platform, so you're not scrambling around for content right at the last minute. If you do that keyword research, then you will have a list of videos that you can create, and it will be very easy for you to sit and batch content once every couple of weeks or once a month, and repurpose as much as you can. You don't necessarily need to create content on TikTok that's entirely different from the content that you're creating on Instagram. You can repurpose content between platforms, but what I would say is that at minimum, you should be re-editing it for the platform that you're posting it on. For example, if you add a hook title to the first few seconds of your video over on Instagram, I wouldn't recommend downloading that video and then posting it exactly as it is over on TikTok, because that's not the best way to be growing your account. You ideally want to then be re-editing it in TikTok and adding a hook via the TikTok editor, because TikTok can read that title. Whereas if you're just downloading it from Instagram and putting it straight on TikTok, TikTok can't read what that text says on the video. So you're losing that, which is quite good for SEO. And captions on TikTok are generally much shorter, and the hashtags are going to be different too. But I wouldn't just repurpose exactly what you're doing on Instagram over to TikTok. I would look at what people are searching for on TikTok and make sure you're creating content in line with that, because ultimately that's what's going to help you show up in those search results and get more eyes on your content. Whereas what people are consuming on Instagram is going to be a little bit different. So you can repurpose. There will be videos like, for example, if you created a video about the 3 top treatments for tackling jowls non-surgically, that is going to do relatively well over on Instagram as well. But I would just be mindful with your repurposing, and at the very least, make sure that you're re-editing it to make sure that it's optimized for each platform. You don't want to be posting anything with a TikTok watermark over on your Instagram, and you don't want to be saving anything from your Instagram editor to post over on TikTok either. Another thing to note is hashtag and analytics. So hashtags are relevant on TikTok, whereas I have said before, when I post reels on Instagram, I don't use hashtags because hashtags don't work on reels. We know that. The Instagram algorithm works a bit differently with reels, whereas on TikTok, hashtags do matter. So I would look at hashtags that are relevant to your video topics and test different hashtag types. So that could be hashtag aesthetic clinic, hashtag Manchester clinic, hashtag Manchester skin, hashtag profilo. Like, I would use a mixture of both location-based hashtags and hashtags that are directly related to the topic that you're talking about within the video or the content itself. Review your analytics monthly and look at which videos sparked the most saves, shares, or comments, got the most reach, and create more content like that, because ultimately that is what's going to help you grow in the long run, is if you're looking at what's working and replicating that in different ways. For example, if you do that video on your 3 top treatments for tackling jowls non-surgically and it does really well, I would then create more content about jowls. It doesn't necessarily need to be the same thing where you're talking about the best treatments. You could hone in on one treatment and talk about that specifically for jowls. You could mark up the face and show like various areas you might treat with injectables to improve the appearance of jowls. Or you might talk about what actually contributes to jowls in the first place and the part that mid-face volume has to play in the process, which a lot of people don't expect. So there are different ways that you can then use those keywords again and again and again to see what else you can get out of them if you know that that type of thing is doing particularly well. In terms of video length, this is something else that I think you should definitely test and see what works. I do find that with educational informative videos, if you're answering a question that people are asking, people are more likely to stick around and watch that entire video, right? Because you're giving them value about something that they want to know. So you can get away with maybe doing a 1.5 minute video, but I would test different video lengths, 30 seconds, 45, a minute and a half, and see what works and whether there's a big difference in reach or engagement between different lengths. I really don't think there's a one size fits all here. TikTok are pushing more long form content, so I would take that as a signal that the platform wants you to be creating longer videos. I'm not saying that you should be putting out 3 to 5 minute videos every single time, but I have watched 3 to 5 minute videos that have gone viral. So it just shows that people are there willing to watch videos of that type of length on TikTok, as long as they're the right types of videos. They're giving people value, they're keeping them hooked in, and they're engaging them. So a bit of a summary from this episode, and maybe clearing up a few things that I might have missed. So number 1, you want to create your profile and include relevant keywords within your bio to make sure people know exactly who you are and what you do when they land on it. You can add a website link once you reach 1,000 followers as a personal or creator account, or you can add it immediately as a business account. So, I think just immediately go in with the business account, because ultimately, what's the point of posting if you're not going to be driving people anywhere? Watch and learn what others are doing. Note down what other people are doing in your industry or niche that's working well, and any gaps that you could fill with your content. Look at the keywords people are searching for. Go to that search bar and search every single treatment that you offer and every single concern that you can help people with. and even other things like skincare or specific skincare ingredients, women in their 40s, and see what comes up, because these are other things that you can bring into your content that are really going to help you resonate with your audience. I also think it's really worth picking a content niche and sticking to it. So those sharing unique content in their niche are generally doing better than those who came late to the party and are just trying to do a bit of everything and see what works. So I definitely think if you're somebody who wants to be reaching women over the age of 40, if that's your target audience, you should be calling that audience out within your content and kind of position yourself as the go-to person for natural subtle treatments for men and women in their 40s and above. Same thing if your audience are mums. I would niche down and talk to mums and create content that's specifically tailored to mums. So, going beyond just the treatments and the concerns that those people have, but, skin changes that people don't expect after having a baby, or your own journey with parenthood and how it's affected you. You want to think about different types of things that you can bring into your content that's going to relate to the target audience that you're trying to attract, in order to get them to kind of connect and resonate with you and see you as not just a thought leader, but a human being. And the only way you can really do that is through that personal content. So showing your own stories and experiences and using storytelling techniques within your content to kind of help people resonate to what you're saying to them. Be consistent. So when starting out, I would post, like I say, quality over quantity. I do think that the more you post on TikTok, the easier it is to grow, or the quicker you will grow. But I understand that we're all running businesses, and posting on Instagram is understandably more than enough for a lot of you. So I wouldn't push yourself to be posting daily on TikTok. If you just want to build up your account and your presence and be doing something on there, I would just start out with 3 times a week and go from there. And if you can build it up, great. But just having some sort of presence on there is better than nothing. And if it takes you a little bit longer to grow, I think that's fine, as long as you're growing in the right way and getting the right people to find you. I would also definitely use location tags. So you can add location tags to your videos. And I think that's important, because if you're a clinic based in a town in Surrey, what good is it for somebody to be seeing your content all the way over in Scotland? Because that's what will happen, with TikTok. Like I say, it's much easier to reach new audiences and reach new people. And the thing is with that, TikTok will literally push your video out to anybody. And it will push your video out to people who engage in some form or another with content that's similar to the content that you've posted. So if people tend to engage with aesthetic practitioners and clinics, or content about anti-aging or aesthetic treatment, or how to improve the appearance of sagging skin, the algorithm will show that type of person more of that type of content. So it will be likely to show them your video about how to improve sagging gels, even if they're based all the way in Scotland or in France or America. So using location tags, I think, is essential for a service-based business who really just needs to be focusing on attracting people within the local area, because it will help the algorithm understand who you're trying to attract. Be patient. The shelf life for TikToks is much longer than posts on other platforms, like I mentioned earlier. It can take a few days for your post to be picked up as well. If it doesn't gain traction immediately, don't lose faith. I've had videos that got picked up weeks later and suddenly pushed out to hundreds of thousands of people from absolutely nowhere. The algorithm can work in very strange and mysterious ways. So I would not delete a TikTok just because you didn't think it performed as well as it should have done. I would leave it and let the algorithm do its thing. When creating videos, always start with a strong hook. Think visual, audio, and text on screen, and get to the point quickly, otherwise you will lose attention. So try not to want to give all of the information in one video. A lot of the things that you're talking about to do with concerns and treatments are very complex, and it's impossible to cover every single aspect of that concern and how you would treat it in one 60, 90-second video. So I would just focus on the key things that people need to know. Add written captions on your videos that come up as you're talking, because this improves accessibility, engagement, and SEO. I think it holds people watching for longer, and there's some great caption apps that you can use these days to add really engaging captions, but there's also some great caption options within the TikTok app itself. And again, I do think TikTok probably prefers that you use the captions within their app. And finally, add value rather than more noise. There's a lot of noise on TikTok. There's a lot of trends on TikTok. Don't rely on trends solely to grow your brand. Instead, share your thought leadership to grow an engaged following of potential customers and patients. Think about those questions people are searching for. Think about the unique experiences and stories that you have to share that are going to resonate with the target audience you want to attract. and just experiment. I think, as with any platform, the most important thing you can do is test different things and find what works for you. If you find a particular topic or style of video gets a lot more reach than anything else you've done, then do more of that. Find what works and then hone in on it and repeat it. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. At its core, TikTok for aesthetics businesses is about being seen, being trusted, and being found when potential patients search or scroll. If you commit to consuming strategically, batching content wisely, blending education trends and personal content, setting up your profile smartly, and tracking what works and doing more of that, then you're not gambling on going viral. You're building a discoverable, reliable brand online. So to all the solo practitioners and clinic teams, take the plunge, start the TikTok account, follow the steps that I've given you today in this episode, and give it your best shot. The earlier you embrace this platform, the sooner you'll tap into its immense potential. And in a year's time, you could be looking at a thriving TikTok presence that's elevated your personal brand and filled your booking calendar with even more of your dream patients. TikTok is where your future patients are. I'm not saying that Instagram is important, it really is, but I don't think you should be putting all of your eggs in one basket with that social media platform. I think you need to be diversifying your marketing approach when it comes to social media and making sure you're in all the places that your target audience are present. So I hope this has helped. I hope you feel more confident about showing up on TikTok strategically. If you have any questions, as always, please do send me a message over on Instagram. I'm always happy to help at Bloom and Beyond Studio. And as I said earlier, please do subscribe to this podcast for more episodes like this. And if you wouldn't mind leaving me a 5-star review, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you and see you in the next one.